Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Zoe,
I'm Mark.
and we are the Board Adventurers. So for today, we're going to do another fresh off the shelf, and we are going to discuss the two-player co-op game Sky Team. This is published by Scorpion Mask and designed by Luc Ramond.
So in the arc of Sky Team is it's a pretty short game, but you're gonna set up this piece on the board. The player that's on the left side is gonna be the pilot. The one on the right side is gonna be the co-pilot. Each player is gonna get 4 dice. They're gonna get a player board that they can hide their dice behind. They're each gonna get their own respective color dice. And then we'll start the game. You'll set up the board that has the axis in the center, and it'll face the plane as horizontal, so it'll be facing straight up the arrow. Then you put in the little squares that cover up the green lights on the board, and then you can start playing. So when you first start the game, you're going to have two things you're going to want to focus on. You're going to focus on the altitude, and you're going to focus on an airport. The altitude tells you the number of rounds. So there's two sides to the altitude. One side will give you a reroll. The other side will give you 2 rerolls. So one's easier, one's harder. The airport is where it gets a little different, where you can vary things. Is that you can have different airports, and they'll give you different effects. We won't go into all of them today, but just so you know, this is like the base one. You'll set it up so that it's you'll put the very bottom of it at the top of the player board. So it's going to come in like this. Any space that has these airplane icons, you're going to place these little airplane tokens on. That's going to signify traffic, meaning that you need to clear traffic in order to get your plane to land safely at that airport. Then you're going to start the game. So on your turn, you're going to roll the 4 die that you have. And you're going to have multiple places that you can go. So we're just going to look at this board again. So on the pilot side, it's almost reflective on the co-pilot side, but on the very top, you have radios. This will clear off any of the planes based on the die roll that you have. So if you have a 6 that you place at that radio, you're going to count 6 spaces up this, and you're going to remove one of the planes from that location. There are 2 mandatory actions on both the co-pilot and the pilot side. The first is the axis. The pilot and the co-pilot will have to place 1 die at the top there. The difference is what's going to turn the axis of the plane. So for example, if you have a 3 on the pilot side and a 2 on the co-pilot side, that arrow is going to move 1 over to the pilot side, meaning the plane is going to start tilting over to the pilot side. When the second thing that's mandatory is the engine. This will determine the speed at which the plane is going. So you're going to add in the values. At the beginning of the game, there's going to be 2 locations, one marked in blue, one marked in orange. Whenever you add the 2 numbers, if they fall below the blue value, the plane does not move, meaning that you don't progress any closer to the airport. If it falls between the blue and the orange, you're going to move the space 1 down, meaning that you're going to approach it once. And if the sum that you have exceeds the orange value, it's going to move 2 down. So it's going to slide 2 down. You're going to be basically speeding towards the airport. The other spaces here are brakes, which are only the pilot can do. So this is depending at the very end of the game, if you have the altitude, the plane, and the airport in the same window here, depending on the brakes and the speed up here, you will safely land that plane. And then you have coffee. Coffee gives you, it adds another 1 or subtracts 1 from your die roll. Lastly, there's the landing gear and the flaps. Each are respective to the pilot and the co-pilot. So only the pilot can activate the landing gear. That's based on the die number that's on that space. The flaps are only the co-pilot can do, and that's based on the number space. End game condition comes down to when the altitude of the plane is at landing ground and the airport is in the same window, you're going to go into a final round here. The axis of the plane, so meaning the plane has to be perfectly horizontal for you to win this game. The engine, you need to have your speed less than the amount of your brakes at the very bottom. And that's really it. There are other variations for this game. You can add in modules for more traffic at airports, busier airports. You can add stuff for ice. There's stuff for kerosene. You can add in an intern who is inexperienced at things. But that's really the variation that you can get out of this game. But that's Sky Team. What do you think?
Yeah, so Sky Team is a game that got a lot of buzz when it came out as a new two-player co-op game that a lot of people enjoyed. So I was really curious to check it out. And when we played like the first game, I thought, okay, it's cool. It's just a dice placement game in which a lot of things have to balance for you to win the game.
Right.
When we played like the additional modules of it, it really reminded me of Under Fallen Skies, which is it's a solo only game, but it reminded me of it a lot, where it's kind of like a simple dice placement rule set, but then there are additional modules that changes the rules enough that make it kind of unique. We haven't played through a ton of the modules in the game,
Right.
but that's the vibe I'm sort of getting so far from what I've played of it, and I enjoy it. I don't know if I would say it's an amazing game. I think that's more so because I'm not, co-op is not my favorite genre of board games.
That's fair.
It takes a lot for a co-op game to really make me love it. But I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. I think there are some cons, and most of it is attributed to just being a dice roll and dice placement game, and having the game sort of trying to control how much you can mitigate against what you roll. But that's kind of hard, and when you only have 4 dices and not a lot of times in which you can mitigate it.
Right, and then 2 of those dice actually have to be mandatory.
Exactly,
so you really have minimal choices for the other 2.
Exactly, and that kind of the mitigation factor of what it's trying to do versus what you can do is really its only con. It can make probably some games not as enjoyable if you get a very unlucky roll and not a lot of options to mitigate that roll. But what do you think of the game?
I was pleasantly surprised by Sky Team. I went in actually not expecting to like this game. I wasn't really captivated by the theme of it.
Gotcha.
And I thought I wouldn't. Yeah, I thought I wouldn't get into it, but it definitely captures the theme very well. It really feels like I'm trying to land this plane and trying to communicate with you.
Yeah.
The lack of communication is a little weird to me. I feel like I should be able to tell you what I can do and what I have.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of leads into how this game can be you have to need to think in this game.
True.
Because you don't know if your partner is going to tilt the axis that much. You don't know if they're going to have enough number to tilt it in the same direction that you need them. So sometimes what I tend to do with the axes is that you end up putting them almost in the middle so that it doesn't tilt, in any long direction.
Yeah. I kind of I like that too. Just the mandatory pieces I actually think are my favorite parts of the game, even though that's kind of the most annoying part of the game. But I kind of like that you really have to control that, and you have to communicate with what you place and when you place it.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoy that aspect of the game. I find that to be the most interesting choices in the game, as opposed to what you do with the other 2 dices that you have.
Yeah, with that first game that we played, the base one, which I think is Montreal.
Yeah.
It was it felt good. It felt like you were learning the aspects of it.
Yeah.
I think I really started to enjoy it right when we got to playing, say, Heathrow. So that was I think the second or third game that we played was Heathrow added traffic. Yeah. And they added in that black die. So there's a black die in there that when you roll it, if the piece where your approach has a black die on it, you'll roll a die and you'll add a plane into that location up there. So you're actually adding more traffic, and you want to try to approach but also remove. So it kind of it gave us a reason to be more alert for this certain aspect of the game.
Yeah, and that's what really reminded me of something like Under Fallen Skies does the same kind of similar concept. It was just kind of, we're gonna add this little small piece to make this rule set. You have to pay attention to it more than you do in a normal game.
The same thing with the ice, because the ice gives you a tilt for for the axis, right? You have to come in at a certain axis.
Yeah, just
So-
changing it a little bit to make it more interesting than previous games.
Yeah, exactly. So like I like the base game is good, but the added modules that go into this make this game definitely worth replaying.
100%. I do agree with that. And I actually would really appreciate if more co-op games did that.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of co-op games or even solo games that once you've played it, you've played it.
Right.
And it's
Right,
hard
that's
to
very
make it interesting from play to play because it is going to be different. I mean, it's going to be similar if you're playing with the same person,
Yeah.
which normally you're going to do in a co-op game.
Right.
But adding like those modules where it changes the rule set just a tiny bit
Yeah,
really
and it adds
adds
variety,
more
too.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that should be a thing going forward for most co-op games. It
Yeah.
really works for this game. It really increases the enjoyability of this game.
Yep.
And one thing you mentioned too was the thematic nature of the game. It is very thematic, but also the lack of communication makes it not thematic. I can't picture a pilot
Yeah.
and a co-pilot not discussing.
Yeah, that
what
was the
they're
part
doing.
that was like I just couldn't wrap my head around that
Yeah.
like perfectly. But like it's part of the game. Like
Yeah.
otherwise, like it would make the game too easy.
Oh,
and it would
100%.
make yeah, like
The lack of communication is part of it,
yeah,
and I did enjoy it.
yeah.
But
Nice.
cool. And in terms of rating, what would you give? What would you give this game?
It's a hard one. I'm falling right now between a 3.5 and a 4. But right now, I think I'm at a point where I'm at a 4. This is a very solid game.
Yeah.
This game has replayability in the modules that you go into. If you like a certain part of the game where it's like I like to be able to keep the axis balanced, there's a module for it. There's
Yeah.
like a way where like planes become an issue. There's a module for it.
Yeah.
There's a way where like they can add fuel or some sort of like issue into there. There's a module for it. So I think this is a solid game that people should definitely at least try.
Yeah.
And then if you like the co-op, this might be something that's in your bag. And definitely try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am everything you said about the game in terms of why you gave it a 4, I agree with.
Yeah.
But I'm giving this a 3.5.
Okay.
I like this game. I still think it's a good game. That's still within our good rating.
Yeah.
I just can't go to a 4 to say that this is a pull out and play game night. I think this is a very specific time that you pull this out. I do think
fair.
the extra modules really, really add to this game. For me personally, I'm not the biggest co-op fan.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to play with the other, play with all the modules in the game multiple times. I want to see what it has to offer. But I feel like once I get that, I'm pretty much going to put this game away.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, like one thing I do like though is that it's also very easy to kind of set up and go through everything. Like a lot of games sometimes muddy it up with a lot of different rules.
Yeah,
This one simplifies it to just the board.
which is awesome.
So
That's great, too.
that's one of the great things about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I keep comparing this to Under Fallen Skies, which it doesn't deserve to be compared to other games.
Yeah.
But how I view this is really how I view Under Fallen Skies, in which for me, I played the campaign of that game once, did it, probably will never play it again.
Okay.
And I'm kind of the same way. I just want to see everything it has to offer, and I think it's cool that it offers a lot. But the co-op nature of it, cool, but it can kind of get old without the extra modules.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of landed on a 3.5. Just think it's good. But
Nice. That is our review of the 2-player game, Sky Team. We are the Board Adventurers. I'm Mark.
I'm Zoe.
We'll see you on the next adventure.